Okay. It's a bit weird too, because it'll start playing over here and then I have to stop it really quick. Otherwise I go insane because I hear myself like on a 3-second delay. Cool. All right, everyone. This is the Package Team's weekly retro for July 5th. I'm going to read for Tim, unless at least for the what went not so well, since Tim is out today. He's on a bit of a holiday, which is awesome. Starting off, he said a few users flaked on their user interviews. So he ended up with 3 internal users and 5 external. He was hoping of 3 and 8. Second item was spent a lot of time in meetings with a short week. It feels painful to him. Next week, he needs to make time for documenting learnings from user interviews and thinking about the information architecture. And that Conan MVC is a bit behind schedule and may be shipped late, which is kind of a bummer because we're all excited about that. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the only thing that was not so great was that the subgroup packages issue was still stuck most of the week. Just seems that the maintainer and reviewer that I've been working with were kind of super busy this week, so they didn't really have time to take a look. And but they got to it yesterday, and of course that was the day that I was out. So today, hopefully, we'll get things moving and get it through. Fingers crossed. In time for early next week.
Cool. Yeah, and I think there is an effort ongoing right now to increase the number of maintainers and reviewers. So yeah, it might just be because we're growing and there's a lot of other work, and we've had a couple of production issues as well. So like, I think people are getting pulled around a fair bit. So I hope that's not a standard thing, but.
Yeah, I think it depends on the area. Like from what I understand, there's it gets backed up in certain areas, like database maintainers are shorter than regular code base maintainers.
Yeah, we have one right now, apparently.
Is there just one? Yeah, then that's probably what was holding mine up.
Yeah, generally speaking, we actually have ongoing discussions on both, code maintainers and database maintainers, and we do have a fairly serious shortage for database maintainers, even more so. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be a long-term issue, but it's certainly understanding that would affect you. Cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to change if you had more thoughts.
Nope.
And ended up, this is mine reading for myself now. Maybe I should have someone else read for me. Ended up feeling like I was running around a lot this week and not getting things done. I think that comes down to just having a lot to do and trying to make sure I'm prioritizing things. And I think sometimes when you get through your top priorities, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Because you're like, okay, I've got all the main things out of the way. So I think I'm just sort of working towards, that'll be helped once we have people joining the team, the engineers we've hired, and the team starts filling out. It'll feel a little more clear what I have to do after that. But I haven't come up with a great plan for the time zone spread starting Monday. There is a plan, but I don't think it's ideal. I definitely would like some feedback from everyone. We're going to probably trial just having every second or third meeting for our team meetings will be on the alternating time zone, which will mean we'll have to really be careful about the agenda. Right now, it's going to be a little bit odd just because, Nick, you're in the UK, and then George Inez is going to be in Australia, so it'll be one person on either side of the spectrum. So yeah. I think alternating right now maybe for this month, and then you just might, for one of those meetings, you just have to make sure you put stuff in the agenda, and then the video will be online, so you'll be able to watch it. But that is going to become more of a concern as we add more people to the team, because as you know, we'll have people in Switzerland and other places. So if there's any feedback you have about how that's happening or whether it's working, I'll certainly want to hear about it. We have Go work that we have to do for container registry maturity, and we've hired people who are all in the Rails world. So we're trying to work through a good way to do that. just to manage that dependency. I've raised it with everyone. There's ongoing efforts, hoping to get that sorted sooner rather than later, but it'll take time, unfortunately. So that means container registry is some component of it's going to end up in Workhorse anyway, which is Go. So definitely thinking in terms of the team coming up to speed with Go work, because it will be a necessity for what we do, but not being expected to know how to fix everything on the spot, right? Because the expertise takes time. So that's the other thing I'm working through. Good to go, Nick.
Cool. So overall, I've had a pretty good week this week. With the only real issue that I've experienced is that I was having some issues with like RSpec tests, because it's not something I'm like really overly familiar with, where they weren't really passing locally, and I couldn't really figure out why. So the artifacts that they were generating just didn't show the right, like just had things disabled that should have been there. But the weird thing is that when I was running them on the pipeline in an MR, it did actually work fine. So it's a little bit concerning, but yeah. So I've sort of not worried about it too much, because if it's working on the pipeline, then that's okay. And it's obviously just a local thing on my side that's preventing it from working. Although I really couldn't see what I've done differently locally. Especially because I haven't really touched that area of the code either. So that was something I've just sort of like parked, and I'll worry about that later.
Yeah, I mean, always remember to reach out when you have questions, and I think you did. But if you didn't, just like, we're all here to support each other. So like, I don't think I necessarily could have been helpful, but Steve might have been able to be helpful, or it may be that someone on Darby's team or someone else's team will be like, oh yeah, I ran into that, here's the fix for it. And then maybe it goes in the documentation once we work out what the drama is. Generally assume that we're all smart people. And so if we have some problem in setup, it's probably because the documentation is like missing a little assumption that we all, people have been making. So I generally encourage people, although I do it to myself all the time, I generally encourage people not to assume that you're the one making the mistake, because it just might not be clear, right?
It's so hard not to assume that, like it's
well, you're smart people, so yes, yeah. I get it. I totally have that feeling myself, but definitely I just time box it is really the best advice I can give. Give yourself 30 minutes. If you can't work it out, yeah, you found a workaround, you got it going, cool, great. But next time you go to deal with that, you're gonna have to deal with it again, right? So like, it's definitely worth asking for assistance. And if I can be of assistance, let me know. I can hook you up with some other people, or ask the other front end peeps on your team, because they might have had experience with that. Yeah. Cool. Moving over to what went well. I'm going to read. Oh, actually, does anyone else want to read for Tim? So we just have to listen to me drone on.
I can do it.
Go, Steve. Yes.
So let's see, what went well for Tim? Our users have been really helpful in providing color on both the Helm chart issues and Conan NBC issue. Finding time to catch up with coworkers about things outside of work was valuable. Backlog grooming session was valuable for discussing popular bugs and thinking through priorities. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
I'm next.
Yeah, you are next. I think both of those things were really helpful, and our discussion for Nick, I don't think you're in that discussion, but the way I think about grooming is a little different from that meeting we had, where we kind of went through what we were planning on putting into 12.2. My idea of grooming is going through the backlog of stuff and identifying, what items we care about and those sorts of things. And you can only chip off a little bit at a time, obviously. I think we're probably going to, for our next grooming, we're probably going to come up with a mash of those two things to sort of achieve that result, because I thought that was quite helpful too. You were in that meeting too, Steve, so I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought that was really good. Just also kind of getting a glimpse at things that are coming up, and the overall view of the next few months.
Yeah, and I think the other benefit, excuse me, that comes out of that type of meeting is that when, Nick, you run out of stuff to do, because you've been killing it, thank you, we'll have a better, clearer idea of like, okay, this thing is coming up, we could probably do that. Whereas right now, I'm still trying to get my head around that a lot. So, but yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so this week I started looking at the 12.2 issues, which is going well. Feeling a lot more comfortable with, what they are, where they are, what needs to be done. So that's a good feeling. And then in addition to that, I just kind of did a little overview intro of Helm because it's something that I know nothing about and had never even really heard of before starting here. And so that was good. It wasn't as crazy as I expected. And it was also just a really good kind of reminder of, Kubernetes in general, which is something that I have just very light experience with. So it was good to kind of get that back on my radar.
Nice. Yeah, great. Thanks. For me, processes seem to be working okay right now. I think a lot of that, everyone's getting up to speed. I know I still am. I think with the cadence we have of monthly releases, we only cycle through this process like once a month. So it's slow to sort of learn from that and improve. So with our constant deployment work coming forward, it means that we're going to have a faster cycle, I think. And so that'll mean that we have more opportunity to improve, and because the cadence is increased. So I feel like everything's pretty good right now, but yeah, it's probably just going to get better, which is good. Both of you have been doing great work. Thank you very much. I feel like you're both getting through your work pretty quickly. I definitely tend to sort of want to start people out with simple things and then increase it as we realize we're capable. So I'm going to probably start looking at just adding a few more items to the list of work to do because you're both getting through everything pretty quick. And I just want to say thank you very much for your hard work. So it's been really good.
Cool.
Go, Nick.
Me next. Okay, so managed to get through quite a lot of my issues this week and basically get them all code complete and pending reviews and stuff like that. So that was really, really good. I was really happy about that. One of the issues in particular had quite a lot of significant HAML changes, and I can't remember if it was last one or the time before, but I did mention that I wasn't too familiar with the HAML syntax, and so being able to get that issue through without actually having any recommended updates from the reviewer or something I was really quite happy about that. So I guess I guess I'm starting to know how HAML works, I suppose.
Awesome.
So yeah, I was pretty happy about that. And then finally, I'm just getting way more comfortable with the MR and reviewing process, and just understanding what's expected of me and what's expected of the reviewers and that kind of stuff. And that's just giving me way more confidence that I can actually do more issues, and I'm confident that I'll be able to deliver those issues and not get stuck in some process somewhere where I'm doing something slightly wrong or against the flow or whatever. So yeah, that feels good as well. Nice.
Yeah, you definitely both I've been really happy with that. And I mean, HAML's kind of weird, but it's good too. And I think this is part of the reason that we try and keep the issue count low when you're starting out, obviously, is so that you can work all this stuff out and get some level of comfort with it all. So this is great to hear. And as we add people to the team, it means you can sort of help guide them through. So that's really all I've got. I think the only thing is just another reminder that George Inez is starting on Monday, and that'll be Australian Monday that he'll be starting. So that means before we're all awake. So keeping in mind that, yeah, he has an onboarding buddy who's in the same time zone, so that should be fine. But keeping in mind that will mean that if you look at that team link that I shared, I think I've shared it a couple of times, but if anyone's interested, it's a way for just a little status bar app that shows you what time zones are where. It's a good thing to keep in mind that if you're sort of looking for feedback or information from someone that's in a different time zone, to check where it is. And everyone make sure your Slack settings aren't going to be pinging you late at night and all that sort of stuff, because that's not desirable. So cool. That's all I've got. Anyone else have anything before we call it?
Not for me.
No.
Awesome. Thanks, peeps. Have a good one.
Yeah. Only if you want to.
Yeah, if you like.
Yeah, if you want.
See you, peeps. Have a nice weekend if you want to.
Bye.